Yeah, excuse me. Firstly, yeah, different in a lot of ways. If you look at pre the pandemic kicking in, crowds, the whole match day experience, the lift that gives to the players, everybody concerned really. The 16th man we get at the Principality in terms of our fans who are fantastic. So you take that away. So it is different. It's a different challenge. In particular, I would guess for players, not having that extra motivational factor there, but it's something that all players and I guess management have to come to grips with. So it is different. There's no two ways about it. Just from a COVID point of view, things that we have to go through on match day, the little things that are different in terms of, the national anthem, where we stand, mask wearing, all these things are something that are new to us, and it's slowly becoming part of our daily lives, obviously. So there is an off-field difference and an on-field difference in terms of the atmosphere and how we prepare, but certainly it's not going to take away from the event, and that is we've got another Guinness Six Nations to look forward to, one which for us personally from within the Welsh camp, one that we're really looking forward to because we want to do better than we did last year, clearly, and we need to. So our focus has been on improving our performance and making sure we perform over 80 minutes throughout this competition.
I've been up and running now for 2 or 3 weeks. All that's progressed really well, and I'm back in team training, so obviously wait for selection.
Yeah, well, during that campaign, there was a lot talked about defensively, and we made change there. But if you look at post the defence change, there were other areas of our game which didn't function as well as we'd like. Clearly, the set piece affected us in the Scotland game and the Ireland game. It progressed and got better as the tournament went on. But certainly that was a concern for us. It's something that we're doing a lot of work on in training, and we'll continue to do so to make sure we've got a platform to operate from. So, we talk a bit about the attack and how we want to tweak things there, but no matter what you do in attack, if you don't have a platform to launch from, it makes it very, very difficult. And certainly we got ourselves into some pretty good positions in some of those games that you mentioned, but weren't able to capitalise because of a malfunction in the set piece. So that's clearly a big driver for us to improve in that area, as well as across the board, to be honest, going into any campaign at the start.
We're over 12 months into obviously a change in regime, and we've experienced a bit of everything. Obviously we're in the midst of a very different scenario, if you like, for a Six Nations. We had a lot of caps in the Nations Cup campaign. In patches, performances were pleasing, but then on the whole part we're disappointed with the results. We come into this campaign with a strong squad, with a further layer of player that hasn't been selected that is there to be called upon to strengthen if required. And obviously we want to continue with those performances. Any captain sitting here is going to say they won the championship, but performances come first, and we're going to build on those to get the results.
Yeah, it is. Those players that you mentioned obviously have played a big role in Welsh performances in the past and are very experienced players. What we did though in the Nations Cup is when those players were out, other players got opportunities, and so we've built some depth. Sam Parry, very unlucky not to be in the squad, got opportunities. Shane Lewis-Hughes, the James Bothams, those sorts of players. So we have those guys to call on now going forward if we pick up injuries, and they're more experienced for that process that we had to go through. So I think it's we're in a good space now, and we need to launch from here and start putting those performances on the park over 80 minutes, as I said earlier. Yeah, all pretty good, to be honest. They're all partaking in some shape or form in training at the moment. Thomas, who probably looked the worst going off, is probably the best. He's pretty much in full training now, so we don't think there's an injury cloud over him going forward. Wyn Jones is back training again today. Corey Hill is doing a rehab on a slight hamstring injury. It was precautionary coming off, so there's hopes that he'll take part in training in the not too distant future. So all of them pretty much are looking very, very good. So nobody new has been called into the squad.
Well, I think it needs to go ahead this year. I think the jury's out where it's going to happen. We all know the jeopardy that it's in. All being well, I'm sure, all being well, everyone will be safe and looked after if it goes ahead for those guys selected. But it'd just be a travesty, obviously, that the fans won't be able to to go and see it, because obviously having been involved in a few, it's a very special tour, particularly as the fans make it that way. But yeah, I think from a captain's point of view, we're all in agreement that if it can, it should go ahead this year.
Yeah, well, I think we've had discussions with the stadium around that, and the fact that there are plenty of areas within the stadium to open up apart from the roof. Also, everybody that's at the stadium will have been tested that are in the red zone, and obviously that applies to both groups of players and management. So we'd like to think that it's a pretty safe environment. It's a large, expansive area we're talking about. So we'd like to think the roof would be closed, and that would benefit all players and spectators. No, it's sort of really it's a matter of where and when we want to move a bit of ball. There are times in games when we're clearly going to have to play field position. We probably played a little bit too much in the last campaign at times. But, I did say to one of the earlier questions in terms of where we're working on our game and where we need to improve, without that set piece being stable and getting our share of ball, then it does make it difficult. And I think in some of the games, we didn't string a lot of phases together, so we didn't build a lot of pressure. So, there's lots of parts and moving parts within our game that we're working on.
Well, I think the line has been going okay. It's not too shabby, but no, I think Paul's character, he's a competitor, a tactician. He was a talisman in the jersey, and he'll add to the off-field environment that they have. But ultimately, as a competitor, I think that you don't lose that when you become a coach. And I'm sure he'll be an addition to help their pack.
Look, I agree with you in terms of what he brings, along with Ross Moriarty and Ken Owens. You could add those names to the list, but certainly on Josh. In the past, when he's had time out of the game, he came back and played against England, you'll recall, in the last Six Nations at Twickenham, and he'd been out for a number of weeks. Came back, and we suspected he'd probably go 50 or 60 in that one when we started him. Well, he was playing so well, and he ended up playing the 80 minutes and playing well over those 80 minutes. So he's an extraordinary player. Not many people can do that, but he's one that has a huge engine, and he can drive himself through that pain barrier that obviously players have to go through. So look, it's great to have him back, albeit with one game or half a game under his belt. He's doing a lot of work in training, as is Ken Owens and others that have been out of the game for a bit. Yeah, it is, and you hit the nail on the head. It's a reaction we're looking for, because those are the performances we're after week in and week out, and then that sort of is the best a player can do, control the things that are in front of them, and that is the next opponent. And those boys all played well, which is pleasing to see, and it's certainly it's an indication to us that if we do get bumps, that we've got players that are in form, and that's what we want. We want players that are in form so that they can come in and add to the environment. Well, I think if you look at the players that we have available for selection now in this squad, we're probably in a similar boat, really. So, it comes down to there's also the amount of game time they've had or haven't had, but there's also the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes that the public don't see. And that is immense. And we have some pretty special people that look after our players in terms of their conditioning and the condition that they get them in ready to play. And our guys, we're very privileged in some of the staff that we have in that area, and Alun Wyn will testify to the amount of work that he's been doing in the last 8 weeks and how he's feeling. But certainly looking at him at training in the first couple of days, you wouldn't think he's been out for too long at all. So, class players, big game players, I think generally speaking can step up to the plate. It's how long they'll go for across the 80 minutes, I guess, is the question. We will be doing bits of 15 on 15 live from time to time, but at the moment it's putting a lot of the fundamentals into place for the first week, but we'll look at that at some stage before the game. I don't think you can shy away from some of the physical components of the game. You've got to do some things live, just like a boxer has to spar, and we'll be doing our share before the game. Yeah.